Once again, this is Live and Loud with the Lord, Nelson, that is. And we have a very, very super unbelievable guest with us today. It is Mr. Tue Madsen, the Great Dane. I don't know what else, the Danish Don. All the things about your greatness, sir. We want to talk about those things today. And I see you rocking the Ectomorph t-shirt, which is unbelievable. Zoli, that's my boy. That's my dude. Just love. Now, listen, see, I have my glasses on. You know, I'm a little bit older, so I can take it off, but I still like to see. I like to see the questions clearly. You know.
I think I'll be wearing mine.
No, it's all love. It's all respect. Okay, so we'll get this started. What I always like to do with every person I'm interviewing and having a conversation with is I like to ask them where they are from. And I know we've already said it, but I'd like you to go into where you are from.
I am from Denmark in Europe, very small country on top of Germany. This is where Hans Christian Andersen came from. Lego, Lars Ulrich, Aqua, Barbie Girl. What else do we have? Help me out here. I don't know.
Help him out, Christian.
Huh?
I said, help him out, Christian.
Yeah. We're right next to Sweden and below Norway. And yeah, it's a very small country. I'm in the most beautiful part of it. Like if you look on the map, the main part of Denmark kind of looks like a little pixie, like a little face with a nose, and I'm on the tip of the nose.
Got you.
That's
well, you know,
the beach is like 3 kilometers that way. Well, and
well, we did the Aalborg Metal Festival. I'm sure you've been there. And we had a good time. And Denmark is definitely beautiful. And of course, you know, you got the great Volbeat there. It's all love. And Denmark, now I had a great time in Denmark. It was very beautiful. I took some nice pictures for the family and everything. You know, it's a place, it would be a nice place to visit. There's no doubt about it. It's beautiful. But you say you live in the most beautiful part though.
Yeah. So everybody, you got to come here. If you want to go to Denmark, this is where you have to go.
I got you. All right. So you've played in 2 bands, the Pixie Killers and Grope.
Yes.
Can you recall the feelings of playing in these bands and how did they contribute to your successes afterwards?
Before we were called Pixie Killers, we were actually Atrocity. But the idea being it was this city that was very evil, atrocious. So Atrocity.
Okay.
You get it. It's clever, I know, but that was the idea. But unfortunately, this was in the late 80s and about 7 other bands came out and were called Atrocity.
Oh, really?
So we decided to change it. I think one of them is actually still around. I think there's a German Atrocity that's still playing some kind of goth stuff or something. I don't know. Back then we were really into Exodus, Legacy, before they were called Testament.
Got you.
Anthrax, Merciful Fate, Slayer, Metallica, obviously Anthrax. We had this thing going that was pretty cool. The bass player at some point bought like an old, a small, one of his friends sold a PA system and he had a 16-track tape recorder. So he bought that because then we could start to record ourselves.
Right.
And we failed miserably. We shared rehearsal room with Ildispost. I don't know if you know them. Pretty cool, really cool, actually. Death metal band. They're still going.
Right.
And we shared rehearsal space with them. And at the same time, we did the Pixie Killers record. He also did the first album for Ildispost. And he learned a lot by doing a lot of mistakes with us. And then he didn't do all those mistakes with Ildispost. So our album came out sounding pretty sure it wasn't his fault, though. I have to say that a lot of that had to do with all of us being completely new to the game, didn't know anything. But the point being, nobody else knew anything. So we could go into a studio that had never even heard heavy metal and get a shitty production for a shitload of money, or we could do it by ourselves. And that's what we chose to do. And eventually Jan Borsing was the bass player's name. And he, after about a year, he quit the band because he started to get busy with the studio, and he was one of the main producers in Denmark for I don't know, 10 years or 5 years or something. And he kept the studio. Now he quit it and he's doing something completely different, but he's still a friend of mine. But somewhere along the line, I started like after he quit the band, we turned into Grope. There was some personnel changes and we named it Grope. And then we did some demos in the rehearsal space with a small 8-track and sounded really horrible, but still some friends were like, oh, can you maybe do the same for us? So I did that. And then eventually someone said, oh, we're willing to spend another $100 so we can go to the studio. How about that? And then we went to Jan Borsing studio, Borsing Recording. And that's where I started out doing studio work. Was when I booked time in his studio.
Okay.
And he produced the first 2 Grope albums. The third one I did. And the ones we did after that, then we just continued that way. The next one, we had John Coster mix the album, who did Corrosion of Conformity and DAG and a bunch of really cool stuff. And then for the last album we did, I think I bought my first Pro Tools rig, and that was my first time with any computer. This was in '99, I think. I bought my first Mac G3, the green ones with all the colors and stuff. And
indeed.
Honestly, and I bought the Pro Tools rig from Tommy Hansen, who produced Pretty Maids, Halloween, bunch of. He's been he's still going strong, and he's been doing a lot of things. Hate Sphere and Ill Disposed as well. And I didn't know anything. Now I had a computer, I had a Pro Tools rig. I didn't know anything. And I think actually one of the very first things I did was I mastered a record for Artillery that they had Andy Sneap mix.
Andy Sneap, right?
And when I think about it now, it was like, fucking A. If Andy saw the stuff that I'm sorry, Andy. If you think I ruined something, I'm sorry.
We're gonna get him on here also. Yes, indeed.
But anyway, and then I started doing stuff like at first I was just in my bedroom, did a few small things, and then I started, going to a studio to do drums, then get it transferred into the computer, and then going home to the living room and set up guitars and doing vocals and stuff at home in living rooms, and mix, sometimes going to a different studio to mix, sometimes not. And that's how I started. That was in the beginning of the century.
Yeah, so it was a learning process. So you really, it'll come into other questions that I'm asking. Yeah, that's very interesting, because people have different avenues how they get into the music, and you're like, hey, I was on the job training, doing what I was doing. So that I love it. I love it. So the next question.
It was learning by doing, and it was just out of necessity. And when we started doing demos in the band, and there's always the one guy who helps the other guys out with connecting the amps right and setting up the pedal. And I guess that was me. So I ended up putting microphones on stuff and trying to mix stuff and then it just caught on. I thought it was really interesting. And the last album we did for Grope was like, I was getting so busy, so it took us a year to complete the record. I think we did the basic tracks in a week, maybe 10 days or something for a whole album. But the vocals, the singer he just got a big promotion and had a really cool job where he got to travel the world and go to Texas and then Australia the next week and stuff like that. And I was starting to get more bands coming into my very humble, very small studio. So it was really hard to find time to just complete the album. And it took us a year. And by the time it came out, it was like, H4 needed a drummer, so I told H4, you should really get Anders because he really wanted to play, and he's an amazing drummer, and he became the drummer for H4. Nemec, I was doing the first Nemec album, and they were always complaining about their bass player. I think he knows, so I think I can say. And I was like, they were like so loud about it. Oh, and they're friends today, so I think it's okay. I was like, guys, you have to do something about that because, the album came out on Nuclear Blast and, in a couple of months, you're going to be stuck on a tour bus for probably 2 months and then come home for a week and then go away again. And you're going to end up killing this guy. You have to do something about it now. And then they were like, yeah, but who are we going to find? And I was like, oh, I know someone. Because our bass player really he fit that style perfectly. And he was all about getting out to play live and play music. That was his interest. I kind of felt bad for him and Anders, the drummer, because they just wanted to play music. And here was me and the singer who was like, oh, now we have something else going on that's
bigger aspirations,
maybe a bit more interesting or easier to get by and stuff. So Oberst Thomas is his name. But I sold him to Nemec and he stayed in Nemec for the whole time that Nemec was
awesome. So you fostered relationships. That's a beautiful thing. It's a beautiful thing. So you are super accomplished as a music producer and sound engineer. Your resume is super extensive in metal and you are the go-to guy. I'm going to say that you're the go-to guy. So what is it about your production and engineering that keeps these great acts repeatedly coming back for more?
That would probably be a question better suited for those guys. But I remember one time that was like when I started out, I was always like, I think this is needed. And I know I hated everything that everybody else did. Everybody would say that you use a 57 for recording guitars. And that would be the main reason why I never used one. Actually, not until maybe a couple of years. I've been using it, but mixing it up with other stuff. But it's only like really recently I found out that maybe it's actually my favorite mic now. But back in the day, I was like, everybody's using it. No, they're old and I'm the new thing. And I want to do things my way. And so I never did what anybody else did. And if someone told me, no, you have to record drums like this or do guitars like this, I was like, why? I think this sounds better. Yeah, but it's bad because this and that and the rules and everything. I was like, no, because I think it sounds better if I do it like this. So I just did everything the way that I did, the way that I wanted to suit myself to make me happy. And then there was specific time when one night, like really late at night, because of the time difference, I think it was 11 or 12 o'clock, and I was about to go to sleep. And then the phone rang, and it was from the US. And I was like, what the hell is this, like some Pakistan scam to get my password for a computer or something? But it was Roy, the producer of Rob Halford and Judas Priest and all those things. And that was him asking me if I wanted to mix an album for Halford.
Awesome.
And I was like, holy fucking shit. That guy was on my childhood walls, you know,
Right.
posters.
Right.
Had Wings of Destiny on a picture disc on the wall and stuff like that. So I was like, hell yes. And then, of course, when we hung up, I was like, I could never go to sleep now. Right. Until it dawned on me that, but why do they ask me? They asked me because they heard some of the records that I did. And on those records, the only thing I did was trying to please myself. Right. So if I attack this as now I'm just going to please myself with this guy, then they're most likely going to like what I'm doing. And that's what I did. And they loved what I did to the album, and it was success. So that really made me relax and set in my ways that, well, people seem to dig it. Right. So if I just keep doing.
Do you? Yes.
Yeah, like do what you do what your ears tells you to do. Right. Then everything is probably going to be all right. And so far, it's been all right.
Yeah, so, I mean, awesome. That means you're changing the game. You're doing your thing. You didn't want to be like everybody else. That's awesome. It really is. But that's what brings people to you, though.
Yeah, exactly. But now I'm getting older. Now I'm starting to realize that all those rules and all those like things that people always do, like cliches in music, like you come up with a riff and someone in the band says, it's such a cliche. Yeah, but why is it a cliche? Because it works.
It works. It works. Right.
And the same thing with ways to mic things and stuff. But you know, there's a reason why a lot of people do the same thing.
Right.
And now I'm not so stuck in my ways. I'm open to anything. But I think it's been great that I've had this approach to it, because it made me, instead of going directly to the target, which would probably have been maybe the best idea or the fast way to do it or something, would cause less problems for myself.
Okay.
I went all the other ways, like circling around the labyrinth to find all kinds of other things. So I've covered a lot of ground getting to where I am, and that means I have a lot to draw from. And so I can do it the old-fashioned way, which works, and I can do some crazy stuff. Like I have this local band, you wouldn't know them. They're called Singvogel, but they everything is wrong about this band, really. Like they sometimes don't really use drums. They don't have a bass player. Sometimes it'll be they have. You know, the instrumentation is weird. The guitar amp is something the guy's dad built for him and really to sing through. So it sounds like a swarm of bees coming at you or something. You know, everything is wrong, and it's kind of punk rock. And every time we start out a session, I'm like, how is this ever going to turn into music?
Right.
But going through the recording process, it always turns out sounding just like music.
Right.
And that's I really like working with those guys. I've been working with them for more than 20 years now.
Really?
25 years, maybe even. Yeah. And they're not a huge band or anything, but it's just a nice way to, like, when they come in, I know that it's like taking a vacuum cleaner to my brain, and everything gets gets wiped out and we start out fresh. And then when I come back to mixing some metal right after, it's like, oh, I see everything clearer because of what I did last week with these guys.
Right, it frees your mind doing something else.
Yeah,
indeed.
You get stuck in certain ways, and then it's like
right.
everything's gone, and the world is a new place.
Yeah, you got to touch on it, which I'll touch on some other things in the questions I have. So, how many other genres of music have been blessed by your talents, or do you just mainly produce and engineer metal?
It's mainly metal, but I do like to do anything, and I have done a few reggae records. I did a German country band once.
Really?
Small town, I forget the name. It's a long time ago.
Okay.
I did some, like, my Japanese connection once asked me if I'd be willing to mix an EDM band. And I was like, I don't even know what EDM is, but yeah, sure, I'll do it. And then I Googled it, and I'm not particularly fond of that kind of music. And it was like one of these it's like 7 little girls singing to some.
Right.
And I was like,
I do something. I know.
Why would you even ask me that? But I'm like, but you asked me because you have a reason. So yeah, I'll have a go at it. And if it's horrible, I mean, it's no surprise. But then they ended up loving it, and they asked me to remix the whole album. So, and I've done some other crazy things for Japanese artists. I did this girl singer with a symphony orchestra, like kind of like Celine Dion or whatever, something. And done some electronics for some Chinese bands, Gemini and Mini G from China. I've done a lot of really different things because I'm not really afraid of it. If people ask me, it must be because they think that it would be an interesting angle to their project. And I'm not afraid of it. I mean, at the end of the day, everything is just sound. I mean,
you took the words out of my mouth. I was going to say sonics. It's sonics. Yeah. You have a great ear, and that's what they know when they hear what you do. They're like, hey, he would be able to do this. They know that you understand sonics. Not everybody has an ear for the music, but you have an ear for the music. That adds to your greatness. It really does.
Yeah,
it
and
really does.
You know, I think maybe it's in the physics, like the way your ear is shaped makes, like, the way that, because we're all different, we all look different, and our ear, what's that called, like the tunnel in your ear, is probably different for all of us, and that probably creates different frequency responses or whatever, and that's what makes Bob Rock do what he does. And you know, whenever if I have like a favorite mix or something, like some record that I think sounds amazing, and then I get a band in that's kind of like that, I'm like, I'm gonna try and nail that thing.
Right.
But then when I put it on for reference in the studio, I'm like, no, I don't want to do that, because no, what we have going now is better.
Right.
So and it's not necessarily better, but it just fits my taste better, and it makes me, even though I sometimes want to try to copy something else, or sort of copy, like use something for a big inspiration sound wise, it never really happens. And it's the same for, I mean, everybody playing in a band will probably say the same thing. Oh, we wrote this, like every band will have working titles that are Slayer song 1, Slayer song 2, Metallica song 3. This is the Entomb song. This is the Sick of It All song. This is Stock Mojo song, you know. And because of some riff or some little part that sounds like something, but when they play it, it doesn't sound anything like Biohazard or something, because you're not Biohazard. So it's not going to sound like that. Even though you play the same notes, it's always going to come out different. And that's the beauty of it.
Yes.
I heard someone on the radio, like from film school, movie university or whatever. I don't know what. Oh, something's falling. And the teacher there told all his his students, to steal as much as they possibly could. Like, don't even call it inspiration. Try to steal. If you see something in a movie you want to do, a horse head in the bed of some mafia dude or something, go ahead and steal it. Because it's never going to be the same. I mean, steal as much, but you're always going to put your touch to it, and it's going to come out different because it's also a different movie and that you're doing. So, and the more you steal, the more you learn, and in the end you will shape everything to your own style.
So let me say, I've asked this other question. I didn't ask you this question, but you just saying that says so much. And I've asked Mike Martin. I did an interview with Youre also. But this is the thing. Quincy Jones said, take 10 of your favorite artists, take something from each of them. And when you take something from each of them, you'll have your own style. It'll just be yours. And so when you say that, it just speaks to that. Once again, that's wow. Wow.
I remember one of my Danish band you would never have heard of, but they were really big in Denmark. Cliché they were called. And I remember, I think I was 10 years old or 12 or something. And I saw that there was like, I saw this TV special about the band. And when they did the second album, they said that they went to Sweden. And then they took all the best parts from ABBA and from this band and from some, and then they put it into a blender or something. It was a long time ago, so I don't think blender was the word, but like a dryer or washing machine. They put it in there, and then they took it out as it came out, and that was the songs they wrote. And I took that literally. I took that letter for letter. What they said, I was like, holy shit, that's how they did the album.
Right.
And to this day, the story still sticks with me. And they didn't, but the album is amazing.
It's amazing.
It's still one of my favorite albums.
Love. Well, listen, the next question, I don't even ask that because you already answered those. Some questions specifically for you about what you do. How many different instruments do you play?
I can play a little bit piano. I can read music very slowly, like letter for letter kind of thing. So it's not something I do. I know my way around a piano, but I couldn't sit down and play a song. I can come up with some parts on a MIDI keyboard that will fit the song, and I know some music theory. I play guitar. That's what I've been doing mostly, but I started playing guitar and drums at the same time. So, but I never practice guitar. I do, but I never practice drums. So in here, I'm an amazing drummer, but every time I sit down behind a drum kit, it sounds horrible because it's like the arms and the legs don't do what's happening up here.
It doesn't translate.
But it helps me. Like Anders, who went on to play in who was the drummer in Grove and went on to play in Hatesphere and some other bands. It really helped me. He would say that I taught him to play drums, and not so much because I could play, but I said, listen to Vinny Appice in Dio, listen to Tom Hunting in Exodus, and I'm going to put together a mixtape of the greatest drummers, and then make sure you listen to all these things, and then I would be able to point out what made them good in my head, and he would pick up on all that, and he turned into being such an amazing drummer. I don't think I taught him to play drums. He's very much his own.
But you were an influence because you were a coach. If
definitely, and I made him listen to all the greats.
Right,
and
exactly. So that was big. That there was big because maybe he wouldn't have gone to listen to those. Maybe he didn't see it like that. I think a lot of times as we as artists, if we listen a little bit more, because sometimes, we're stubborn, and sometimes stubborn works. But
it does.
But the thing is that you being so accomplished, listening to you will probably get me to that next level. when you say like, hey, I hear this, or, you know, and so those are the times that we have to open our minds and be more free and embrace the knowledge that is coming our way. So no, that's you were probably well, he let you know you're probably more of an influence than you think. You're just a humble guy, which is love. That's good. That's good.
Yeah, but I also love Anders. I mean, if I have to play some, I mean, I have a small project with him, but it's going. Actually, we're re-recording our first band from when we were called Atro City. We are recording that, and it's going to be an album in some place in time. But so far, it's been. I think we started 7 years ago or something. Right. So and most of it has been recorded. We have some flashy guitar players playing some solos also, and we need to lay down vocals still on 3 or 4 songs, I think. And
got you.
But if I had to get in there and play music with someone again, it would have to be Anders, because since he was, I think he joined the band when he was 17 and I was maybe 20 or something. And it's like I can't imagine playing with anybody else, really. I think it would just be annoying. Even if I was playing with the greatest drummer, I would still be, why don't you do like Anders does? So
I got you. That's awesome. Okay, so what excites you more, being in a band or creating music and performing it, or producing and engineering other great acts?
A little bit of a combo. Actually, I think what I'm doing now is the same that I've always been doing. I don't get to play a lot of guitar, but that's okay. For producing is kind of, it fulfills the same void, because a lot of people ask me if I miss playing live and if I miss playing in a band. I'm like, yeah, but no, because if I had to play with a band, it means I have to get in the rehearsal room and rehearse a lot to get my chops up.
Right.
And I don't want to do that. But I like creating music, and I love, sometimes bands come in and their ideas are perfect already. And sometimes I feel like, I remember thinking about this when I did one of the Haunted albums. I think when we did the Dead Eye, and I was one day when Anders was playing guitar and I was recording, and I was starting to think, I'm really just sitting here. I mean, he does it all the work, and I wouldn't even be able to tell him, no, this sucked, please do it again, because he would know before. Actually, there was one day when you know, I would be, I don't know if you, but this is the studio. Here I was looking at Pro Tools on the screen with my back to Anders, and he would be right here playing guitar, and I would be like this looking at the screen, and then it was like he kept playing, and then I was like, was this a little bit out of tune? And then, does it sound a little out of tune? And then I turned around and looked at him, and he was just like staring at me, like, when is this idiot gonna hit? Because he was bending every note just a little bit, just to fuck with me, to see when is he gonna wake up and see that this is a piece of shit. And then I looked at him and said, okay, from the same part, and he was like, which is Swedish for yes. So, you know, but then I read an interview with them sometime later where they talked in the interview about how happy they were to work with me, and in so many different ways. And then I realized, even though I think that sometimes maybe I don't really do something, but I do something anyway, because then I open my mouth and I don't think about it. Like now I just ramble on, and then stuff happens. And my decision, I'm not so much a dictator. I don't do, like, if a band comes to me, I'm not doing my records, I'm doing their records. And so if they have an idea about, I want to play guitar through this amp and with this type of sound, then that's what we'll do, because I don't want to make 200 Tue Madsen records. I want to make 200 different records, and everything, I hope everything sounds different. And of course, I will leave my mark on it, and that will, also make a difference. But my main goal is to make the record that the band wants to make, and then help them make their own ideas as good as they can possibly be.
So you went straight into my next question. What I was going to ask you is, when you work with a band, are you orchestrating everything, or are you open to their input? So you just let me know that you work with them and you want it to be there. So that's, hey, love. All right, go ahead. I'm sorry.
But sometimes they need it more than others.
Right. So, it's according to who it is.
Sometimes you have to take over and be like, oh, this is not working. Right. How are we going to make this work?
Okay.
But that's different every time, and that's the beauty of this job, is that it's never the same.
So you really like the creating part. You like the recruit. Okay. So I watched the video where you were speaking about a few amps and pedals, one in particular that you got from the great Zoli of Ectomorph. What would you say is the Tue Madsen signature sound? I know we kind of touched on things. What is that sound that you have? What is the Tue Madsen sound?
I don't think there is one.
Okay.
Because it's like asking, what's your favorite amp?
Right.
As you can see here,
you got a lot of
right. There's a lot of them, and there's more in the next room. And all of them are my favorite amps.
Okay.
It depends on what suits the project that we're working on now.
Got you.
So I'll have a guitar player here who, and I'll try to put a smile on his face. And when he's happy, he's going to, with the sound that he's hearing, he's going to play better. And that playing better is going to make a better album.
Right.
And I can work with anything. There are the very clean cut, highly aggressive Exodus guitar sound, but there's also Entombed, which sounds like cats in the alley turning over all the garbage cans. And there's sludgy, I Hate God guitar sounds. And there are, AC/DC guitar sounds. And everything is different. And I love all of it. I love screaming guitars, and I like quiet guitars. I love AC/DC. Like, I think one of the Dirty Deeds songs came on the radio a couple of months ago when I was driving, and I was just like, holy shit. I just turned it up so incredibly. I was picking up our daughter and theater lessons, and she came out all embarrassed, like, can you turn it down? Everybody can hear it. And I was like, yes, that's so good. So, but that's like an old Marshall head, and that's not like a 5150 kind of thing. So the Tue Madsen sound, I don't know. It's when I'm happy, but it can be any sound.
Okay.
I'll just try to shape it into when I like what I'm hearing. But it can be an old Marshall head, or it can be a Vox AC30, or it can be a EVH 5150 high gain monstrous sound, or Englamp. It can be rectifier. It can be anything, really.
Right. And I guess I asked that question because it's just like when there's a song out, it's like, this is a Tue Madsen song. Yeah. That's what I was kind of getting at, where it's you have a lot of people that that is what they do, that is who they are. Oh, that's their sound, So that's why I was asking. But you are a truly, from my perspective, sonics. You love sonics, and most producers and sound engineers love sonics. The sounds, and you have a vibe about you, which is a cool thing, man. You just like
I it's not like I don't care. It could sound like of course I don't care. Of course I care, but but it could sound like I don't care what kind of sound you're playing with, and that's not the case, because I'll fight you if you, like when we did the last Ectomorph album. He came with his Kemper and said, we have to record with this because this is the sound that I like. He did all the demos with it, and man, this is really the sound I need to record. And I was like, no, it doesn't work, because I thought there was all kinds of things. And we went through all these amps and all the pedals trying to get a sound that would make him happy. And it just did not happen. Really? We couldn't get exactly the sound that made him happy. So in the end, we did record with his Kemper. And that is the sound that's on the last album from Ectomorph. And I fought him. And that's also good, because then we ended up with something slightly different anyway. But the struggle is also very good. I think my favorite guitar player in the whole world is Jake Lee Williams, who played with Ozzy and Badlands. And that's because although he is extremely good, he's not perfect, and his sound is almost like he's trying to kill himself, because it's not easy playing with those tones that he comes up with, I think, a lot of times. But I like to hear the struggle. When he's struggling with that old Marshall amp that doesn't really give him enough gain, so it's easy to play with, but then you can hear all the quirky, scratchy little things in his playing. And I just love that. And I think in the same way, my struggle with Soli in Ectomorph about that guitar sound, when we're fighting, because we've been, I've known Soli for 20 years or something, and he's like a brother to me now. So when we fight, it's in a brotherly way, and we end up in, I mean, there's a reason why they keep coming back to me, and I don't think, he keeps telling me that he will never make an album with someone else, and I'm thinking, maybe you should someday. But at the same time, I'm really happy working with him, because
he knows what he gets from you. Yes, what you guys get from
but
each
at
other.
the same time, what he also gets is that he can show up here for the next album and say, this time we need to do something different. And I'm like, yes, we have to do something different, because we can't keep making. And when you listen to all the Ectomorph albums, there really is quite a difference between them. And that's something we tried to do together. Like, now we're going to try something different. Not everybody loved all the changes, but that's how it is. I mean, I prefer Master of Puppets to And Justice for All, but that's just me. I appreciate the struggle.
It's music. Something like Jay-Z said. Jay-Z said, hey, you want the old Jay-Z, go listen to the old Jay-Z. You know, exactly. I got to continue to move and do things that inspire me. So I hear you 100%. That's beautiful. Okay. Now, you kind of, I was going to ask you, what is your go-to piece of, of equipment in the studio? But I mean, just like you said, you love everything. You can use anything. So I'll move on to the last question, because I can now, talking with you, it's like I want to keep you all day long, because I'm interested. I'm loving this 100%. So, Antfarm Studios, your baby. What would an artist get from your studio that they couldn't get from any place else?
The ability to go everywhere that I've been for the past 25 years, because I never sell anything. Even though I'm looking at a machine right now that I didn't use since 2003, but I loved it. It's like it could create this nice chorus that made it sound kind of like Deftones vocals kind of thing. And when I found that out, I was like, oh, this is great. I haven't used it since, but I'm never going to get rid of it, because I know one day that's the sound I'm going to need, and I'm going to pull it out and plug it in. And that's, that goes for when I look around the room here, there's a lot of things everywhere and stuff that I haven't used in 10 years or something, but I never get rid of it because I know one day that might be just the tool that I have to reach out for. I even have my grandmother's old reel-to-reel tape recorder,
right.
which was my first guitar amp.
Right.
There was a jack input, so I didn't know you could do it, but then I plugged my guitar into it because I didn't have an amp. And then it made a sound and I was like, okay. And then if you turn it, it goes to 6, not to 11, but it goes all the way to 6.
Right.
And it sounds really horrible, but it's distorted. So that made me happy. And then I would put on a Dio record and start playing Stand Up and Shout with it. And that was on that thing. And I still have it. It still works.
Awesomeness. Some of the times you might go back there and grab one of those things or that equipment and say like, hey, this sound would be here. Because you have so much, I know, in your head. And just like you say, them coming to your studio and you're saying your wealth of knowledge and all the things that you have done.
Also, now I'm moved out of the city and we're in the countryside and close to the beach and stuff. So it's a really nice area. It's a pretty big studio I built here because when you go to the country, space is not enough. It's not a problem anymore. Right. So it's a pretty big studio and I love the sound of the room I built for drums in there, which to me, I'm not saying it sounds exactly like other greatness studios. Like I've been to Puck a few times where we did the last Meshuggah album, for instance, and a couple of the Haunted records.
Okay.
And that was my favorite drum studio in Denmark.
Okay.
Probably my favorite in the world, maybe, of the ones that I tried.
Okay.
It doesn't exist anymore. It burned down to the ground last year. So it's not there anymore.
Wow.
But the room that I built here is not the same. But in terms of my taste, it gives me the same feeling that I got from recording drums in Puck Studio.
Right.
So I think I have an extremely nice drum room and I build an apartment. So it's like that bands can stay in while they're in the studio. So it's pretty much a family affair, like staying with us and doing some metal during the day and doing some barbecue during night. If I love it when bands start to cook for me.
Right.
Especially if they come from, like when I did Moonspell was always such a joy because as soon as we were done with drums, Mike would start cooking for us.
Really?
So it was amazing. Every day would be amazing food.
That's awesome. Well, listen, I really don't have any other questions. I could continue on just with the conversation because it's been great. You just, it's enlightening to me just to hear the things about, because to me, you're a great dude in what you do, man. And just knowing all the bands that you work with and continue to work with and people really coming to you because they want what you give them. So it's just a lovely thing, man. And once again, I thank you. It's an honor to have you here. Thank you very, very much for agreeing to do this for me, man, and doing it with me. And we're just having conversation, man. And to you and Christian, is he still over there?
Yeah. Yeah.
Nice to meet you, Christian, and your beautiful dog and all, and prayerfully one day, man, I'll be able to get over there and work with you and let you hear some of my stuff and do some things because I'm still doing what I'm doing. But magnificent, man. I really, really appreciate you and thank you very, very, very much for doing this. So, ladies and gentlemen, once again, it is Live and Loud with the Lord and our very, very special guest, Mr. Tue Madsen. Thank you, sir. I really appreciate you.
Thank you.